walk through some of the updates to D2L that will be coming out soon. So our current business, I just want to go over the ways that virtual students can save some money, and then maybe the deadlines that are attached to the access code reimbursement program. And then we don't have any items to vote on, and we don't have any discussions from last week to continue. And as for upcoming dates and events, just 2 more general council meetings left this semester. Monday, April 30th, which is next week, and then Monday, May 7th, which is 2 weeks from now. So we'll be wrapping up this semester then. Both meetings are at 7 p.m., just like this, so we'll see you guys then. And then also, just heads up, tomorrow at 12 p.m., we are going to be live from Harrisburg campus for HACC. So the meeting ID is there on the slide. HACC is kind of from the business club. They'll be doing a lot like Shark Tank. Students are going to be pitching their business ideas in front of some judges, and then even online attendees through Zoom are going to be able to vote as well for audience choice. So that's a very good opportunity for students to just see what's going on campus and participate as well. So the 2 primary ways that virtual students can save some money are bookstore discounts. And in order to do that on campus, when you show that you are taking virtual classes, there are bunches of items that are discounted. So iPads, laptops, USB drives, tons of things that you might need as a virtual student are discounted from the bookstore just by showing that you are taking online classes. So you need your schedule to show that. And that list was updated this semester to include some new things like I think the Apple Watch was included. And there's a running list on our website. So you'll be able to see the most recent information there. And then for the access code reimbursement program, this is something that's renewed each semester as well. So students that are taking an online class that might require some software that they wouldn't traditionally need to buy if they were taking it on campus, so it comes at a extra cost. That's something that would probably be on our forms for access code reimbursement, so that the students taking online classes aren't sort of penalized or to have extra costs associated with their course. So the running list is updated, like I said, every semester, and that can also be found at our website. The forms will be submitted to Academic Affairs now, and the email address is changed on the new forms. So the deadline to turn these in also is May 16th this year. So it's good to get them in early, and you'll receive some information about when you'll get your discounts then after you submit your paperwork. Thanks, Faith. Faith posted the website in the chat. That's www.hac.edu/VLSAC, where you can download the form you need to fill out for access code reimbursement, or see a running list of all the new items that are included on the bookstore discount program. If there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker this evening, which is Jason Beaudin. He's he works with HACC, and he helps work with all the online features and softwares that we use, including D2L Brightspace. I'm going to let him take it away and explain what's going on now. Jason, I'm going to drop my slides so that you can chat directly to our student attendees tonight.
Awesome, thank you so much. And yeah, so just to provide some very quick background, my name is Jason Beaudin. I am the Director of Academic Technologies and the Center for Design and Instruction. And actually, you put it very well. I work with all the online tools and whatnot. So if there's ever any questions that you have, tools that you think we need to investigate, please do let me know. And I apologize. It looks like my lighting is maybe a little dim tonight, so I do apologize for that. I just wanted to come today and walk through a thing called Daylight. So as virtual learning students, you are probably more familiar than just about anybody at the college with Brightspace, our learning management system. And Daylight, it's not changing names again for any of you who remember the Desire to Learn to Brightspace switch. It's staying Brightspace. It's still going to be Brightspace. But internally, the company that provides Brightspace has been calling their new visual interface Daylight. So if you hear people talking about Daylight, it's just a name that they've been using to describe what it's going to look like after we switch over. And that switch over is scheduled for May 15th as of right now. So that is after final grades are due for spring. So none of your spring classes will be affected by this. And it's before the summer classes begin. So all of the summer classes will look like the daylight interface when they come up. So I just wanted to come kind of show you the primary differences between the two, just so that you're all aware. And then thank you for recording this, because I think the more word we can get out to students what they can expect when they log into daylight, the better off we'll be. So I see I can share my screen. So unless there are any questions for me, I will jump into that. And thank you for letting me share my screen. All right. So I've pulled up, and let me move the controls around here because they're going to be in my way otherwise. There we go. So I've pulled up on my web browser the current landing page that I see when I log into Brightspace. So this is pre-daylight. This is not the daylight interface. If you're looking at this and saying, this looks exactly like what I've got today, good. That's it should look familiar. This is the landing page after you log in. You'll see the course list right down along the left-hand side here. And then over on the right, the news widget. And so this is what you would see today. Now, daylight makes some notable changes to this. For one thing, before I flip over and show you the graphical part, it's going to change the way that your courses are displayed. So it will show you now all your current enrollments up to the most recent 12. But that may mean that you might have to search for your newest classes, and we'll get into that a little bit more coming up. It's also going to show you classes that you're enrolled in that haven't yet opened. So if you've ever logged in, looked at your landing page, especially if it was your first time taking an online class, and it's before class starts, you know you're enrolled, but it's not showing up on your landing page, that can be really confusing and disorienting. Now it will show up, and it will just tell you when you're going to be able to get into that class. And then courses you've completed that are already closed will be marked with that as well. All of these are meant to be a little bit more graphically friendly, and they're meant to work better with mobile devices. So if you've experienced frustration, as anybody who's tried to use Brightspace on a mobile device certainly has, this is meant to help address that. So it is a more responsive design. It is not a full app. So it's not like you're going to have like your Gmail app or anything like that. It is still a website. It's just going to respond better when you're on a form factor that is not a desktop. So if you're on a tablet or a phone, it will just change how it's shaped to make that a little more friendly, so you don't do the pinch and zoom again and again and again to try to get where you want to go. So if this is our landing page today, this is our new landing page after daylight. So you'll see it is bright, and if you like bright, you'll like this. They did execute on the brightness pretty thoroughly. You'll see here I've got just a couple of examples of the closed courses. So you can see on my screen, this course in the top left corner is marked as closed, and it tells me the date that it closed. Because I am faculty in the courses, I don't actually have any that are pending, but if it were pending, it would actually say what opens on and then the date. So it would show me the classes I'm enrolled in but aren't yet active. It shows me the courses that I'm enrolled in that are closed, and you'll see these are pinned up here, this little pin icon. That's how you can keep courses up at the top. So if you find your courses are kind of shuffling around on you, when you go into your new course, you can click this little pin and it will stay up there at the top for as long as you keep it pinned, regardless of what else happens on your screen. And then you can always unpin it. So you'll see here, I don't have a pin on this one, but if I go down to this little drop box, I can pin it right there. And now it will stay up here at the top for as long as I've got it pinned. You'll see some links up at the top. Most of these should be pretty familiar. You'll see the Student Resource Center and Lounge link right here. In the old homepage, it was in a similar sort of area, but a little bit smaller, a little bit harder to find. So now it's kind of front and center. And then again, yeah, here's our class listing. You'll see the same news widget over on the side. You'll notice this one says staging. That's because this is not a live environment. For Brightspace, it's all or nothing. So we can't turn it on in our current live environment without making everybody's class look like this right about finals week. Not ideal. So we're going to keep it turned off in our regular instance for now, let the classes finish out, and then we'll all transition over to this in the summer. Questions so far? All right, good. That's good. If you do have questions, don't hesitate to ask them though, because I am here to help. So now we'll take a look at what classes look like on the course homepage, because really at its core, the functional change of Daylight is just to make Brightspace more effective on mobile devices. So that's really one of the big asks that we made of D2L. And I'm not going to say that we're the ones who turned the tide, but it does help that, like other institutions, we also experienced the pain of using Brightspace on a mobile device. So functionally, that's the biggest difference. Other than that, it is primarily an aesthetic change. So if at the end of this, you are looking at your screen saying, well, yeah, it looks a little bit different, but everything else is identical. Yes, you are you are correct. It looks different. It will work better on your mobile device. It still functions the same way you're used to. Still click on classes to get into them. Still write discussion posts the same way. Still submit to the Dropbox the same way. None of those pieces change. It's just about the responsive design. So if we take a quick look back at regular Brightspace, this is what my Humanities 202, my classical mythology class, looks like today. So you'll see my little news widget over here. I've got this kind of green gradient nav bar color thing that I customized. You'll see all those go away, incidentally. There's no more customization of the navigation or of the widget bars. Aesthetically, it's going to look very, very similar between classes. Just so you know in advance, that is something that we have seen. I've got my content module down here, my calendar below that, all very kind of similar to what you would expect to see in a Brightspace shell today. And up here, you'll see my little nav bar menu up along here. When we look over at Daylight, you'll see the text gets bigger. This news area is now significantly wider. All the same content, so all the content remains the same. It's still located in the same relative positions. It's just a little bit larger, a little bit easier to see. And then every once in a while, something changes, like the alignment on this moved over. You'll see that my little green gradient is gone. But other than that, all of that remains the same. You'll see the nav bar up here. The links got a bit bigger so that they're easier to read. And then let me see if I can. So if I start to drag this over, if you watch the nav bar up at the top, as I shrink, what happens is rather than pushing things off the side, it just resizes what is on there. So now all these other items that I just knocked down, those are all in this drop down. They don't go away. You don't have to pinch and zoom and scroll in and out to try to find them. They just go into a drop down. And then let's see, if we were to look at it in a very small form factor, more like a phone, you'll see that it ditches the menu altogether. And we now have this little side menu that we can choose from. All of the news items still remain. They're still on top as they were in my homepage. So if that is something that's a priority for the class, you can expect that kind of top left corner to be what remains when you view it in the smaller form factor. And then as we scroll down here, add a lot of news items. There we go. You'll see that the stuff from the right now just relocated underneath the stuff from the left. Now this is more of a phone view. So what you're seeing here, if you say, well, I don't like the single column, bear in mind that that is designed for our smallest form factors, our most narrow form factor. If you're looking at it more like on a tablet, then you'll get something more like what you saw before, something more like this. If you're in then landscape view, it would look more like this. And then obviously for the PC, you've just got the whole window like that. So that is fundamentally the change. The content will still display the same way. It will be brighter again. So it's going to maintain that. There is the chance, especially for the first semester that we have this in place, that some content won't display properly. And let me see, I picked this class because I believe that I can find an item in here that does not display properly. Let's see, I'll just start working my way through. So this is just a little overview. You'll still see, again, the nav bar up here. Sadly, this one does look like it displays reasonably well. You'll see this little side menu along the side here, so you can jump between topics. Let's see if I can find one that has some pictures off the edge. Oh, it looks like it's actually resizing pretty well. Well, it made a liar out of me. I thought for sure I'd be able to show you one that it was not going to work with, but it does look like the pictures still remain intact. You'll see that there's just a lot more text separation. So if you are used to reading white text or black text on a white page, it should be pretty familiar. They can still change that with styling. So that may still be different from class to class. But overall, they just wanted to make it neater, make it wider, and then let's see if I can resize this. You'll see that it starts to resize the text itself. So words are just dropping down rather than, again, kind of falling off the side of the page. And actually, maybe I can make it, now we're just going to do some experiments. If I can get, right, I like to try to break things while I'm showing them. It's probably not a best practice, but you can see that the text is actually rearranging itself around the images as the page gets smaller and smaller until you get down to just that one column view again, where the image just kind of sits in the middle of the page. So that is daylight. Literally, that's the change. So you may hear a lot about it. We're certainly talking about it a lot with the faculty and administrative end, because we want to make sure that our faculty feel comfortable with it, that they've made any changes they may need to make. We want them to understand what's coming, because obviously between you and the faculty, that's where all the magic happens. So we want to make sure that everybody is set up for success when they roll into their class in the summer and every semester after that, because this is the new Brightspace, and it will be here for probably a very, very long time. Questions, concerns, suggestions?
Gracie's super excited. So I wonder if she wants to comment on that at all.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my mute button would not unmuted. So I am very excited for this because I have this, it's kind of a bad habit. Don't take after me, but I have this one habit where I will read what I need for my school on one side of my laptop and like have YouTube or Netflix on the other side. And so having the text like shrink to the sides of the window is very exciting for me, because now I don't have to like go back and forth, use the scroll bars to go back and forth horizontally and vertically to see everything. So I am very excited for
absolutely. And actually, that's a really cool example, because we have had some faculty who do something kind of similar, especially if they're working on a class. They may have resources they want to incorporate on one side of their monitor and their course in the other. And I know, at least when I've tried that for my classes, it's a pain to have to use that little scrub bar from the side and make sure, oh, where's my edit link gone now? And it is much easier just to have it condense and realign itself. We are optimistic that it will provide a much more aesthetically pleasing and functional experience on mobile devices for sure, but really any form factor that is less than kind of the traditional desktop screen that you might be used to.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind scrolling up to the very top? I noticed that there was a grid option, it looked like, and I was not so, yeah, that. I wasn't sure what that did. Oh.
So that replaces the old select a course list.
Okay.
It looks kind of like the Google Apps app drawer. If you're used to working within Google Apps, they have a similar grid. You can see that you can also search. So if you have a course that is proving difficult to find, you can search for the name or the prefix or whatever, and it will give you that. And then you can see down along the right-hand side, I can pin any of these courses. Mm-hmm. So if you find a course that you're going to be taking this semester, you can just pin it, and now it's going to stay there. And let me, oh, it didn't bump all the way up, but now it's pinned in that location. And I'm pretty sure if I refresh the page, we'll give this a shot. There it is. So now it's at the top of my list with my other pins.
Okay, looks great.
Yeah, I can say I'm excited about it being like a responsive design, more friendly on the mobile app, because the first time I looked at Brightspace on my phone and realized it's not red, I don't know where things are. I think I made it go away from the mobile friendly view to what I would normally see on my desktop. And then you have that issue with nothing scales to the size of my device's screen, that I'm constantly like unable to read full sentences without like dragging the screen left and right, which then you just lose your place. It's next
Right.
to impossible to read like that, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is an unpleasant challenge for sure. And just to make it clear, since you may have seen this little bar, this isn't something that Daylight put in there. This is a development shell that I use for demo and for testing. So this was just you can see that I've got a little switch to a black and white version. I was doing some custom experiments. So that isn't something that, if you're looking at that title saying, oh, I can't read it with that green bar they put in the way, that's not there on most classes. That's something unique to my test shell that I'm working on.
Do you mind showing us what the discussion boards will look like now with this update?
Sure, let me pop over here.
And if anybody is having a hard time, if your mic is muted, you just scroll to the bottom and you can unmute yourself. Feel free to chat. You can also ask Jason any questions you have, or if you're not using a microphone, if you want to just type into the chat box, feel free to do so. We've got plenty of time to answer whatever questions you have as we go through some of these demos.
There we go. So I'm actually just creating a new discussion right now just for this, just because this course does copy data over from another course shell. And although you wouldn't be able to see any grades or anything, I want to make sure that I do observe privacy. So this is a test discussion board. You'll see that was the discussions forum page that you may have recognized. This is within a specific discussion, how it will display. And here we'll just toss in, create a new thread here. Test thread. And post. You'll see that you can pin the thread and you can subscribe to the responses. You've probably already seen the subscribe option previously. Here we go. So when you go into a discussion forum, this is how the threads will look. And then this is how the text within those topic posts would be displayed. You'll see you still get the unread replies and views that you are used to, the subscribe toggle on and off.
Mm-hmm. And would that, and I know, probably know the answer to this, but would that also shrink according to your device size?
That's a great question. Let's try it out. So let's see. All right, so there's a bit like a tablet. And now that's more like the phone. So you'll see all the text is still there. It did get a little bit smaller, but it's present. And I would assume that it would also maintain that vertical list that you're already used to with the different threads.
Okay, that's great, because being the cool student I would go to football games and not pay attention to the game and do my discussion posts on my phone. so that was really hard, because like if I wanted to read something, I'd have to like zoom in on one side, type something, and then like scroll to the other side and type the rest of the sentence.
Right. Brightspace has made it a lot easier to ignore the world around you in favor of schoolwork. So
yes. Yeah, I went to the football games for the band, and if it wasn't halftime, I wasn't paying attention.
So I did have a question, and this is something that came up in previous meetings, just in other topics. So we've had students ask questions about the user interface and whether it's accessible for people with disabilities. And also, I'm just curious, let's say scaling down isn't the concern. What if making the print larger? What if making the view a little bit more zoomed in was something that a student wanted to be able to do? Is that something that will scale well on the browser, whether it's on the computer or a tablet or any device?
So let's see, that is zooming in. These are excellent questions. Honestly, I had not tried this until just now. So I love, I love that there are people here to help me explore these things. This is really exciting. So yes, zooming in looks like it functions at least with the discussion board. Let's go back to the course home and see what it looks like. As for there we go. So yeah, there's the widget, the news item, all those little menu options, and yeah, still condenses down as we go. And then again, we get down to the individual drop down off to the side there. So it does look like it scales well with zooming in. It is meant to be more accessible to a screen reader. So mechanically, yes, it should function better. One caveat, and this is something that we are working on across the college, design still has a big piece to play in all of this. So if a PDF is not created in such a way that it's accessible, putting it in daylight is not going to fix that problem, obviously. So we are working with faculty to identify areas where we may have inaccessible resources, and then we can work with them to continue to change those over. By and large, digital text is one of the most accessible options, so that's encouraging to start with. But it does come down ultimately to how is the page designed, how is the website designed, how is the PDF designed, that sort of thing. So we are continuing to work with our publishers as well when we find inaccessible resources to push them to continue to refine their practices as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent questions.
Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Faith.
No, I don't have a question, but I just want to say this makes me want to enroll in another online course because I'm so excited for this. I want to experience this.
I know I'm bummed I'm graduating and I didn't get to see this roll out.
Well, if you can find a way to sneak back in after May 15th, you can at least see the courses on the course homepage. But thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. It is very exciting to have something that will play better with mobile devices. That is something that we hear consistently is a weak spot in Brightspace. And it is something when we did our last LMS review that was very high on the priority list for faculty and students alike, was that they come up with something like this. So I'm sure they're very excited as well because they've been touting this quite a bit.
You mean faculty?
Yes. What did I say?
Well, I think I heard they. I just wanted to confirm. I was going to ask, how do faculty feel? Do they enjoy seeing this change? And
I got you. Yeah. So the they I meant was actually D2L, because they've been talking about how the responsive design will be great, and we went to them, and faculty and students both had said we want this to be better on mobile devices. And their response to us at that time was, "We hear you. It's it's in the works." Overall, faculty, I don't think they use mobile devices as often. So I think for them, the real payoff will be in how the students receive it. I think they are cautiously optimistic that this will help students complete their work more effectively. And to faculty, that means the world. So if it works well for their students, I suspect they'll be all kinds of on board. I have had a couple people lament that the little gradient color bars on the different widgets are gone. I can see where they're coming from, but fundamentally, the little aesthetic pieces I think will not be missed long term. I think it's more of a transitional sort of nostalgia of. But I remember when I made this happen, this little green gradient, I was pretty pleased. I actually spent probably an embarrassing amount of time picking colors for the gradient that I used on this. Now that it's gone, my immediate reaction was, I miss it. But having lived with it for a bit now, I actually prefer the clean lines of this much more. So I think we'll find faculty, especially once they start hearing from their students what a difference this has made, I think they will be wholeheartedly on board with it.
Yeah, and I know in student surveys, at least the council now has seen in a student survey, some responses, a good flow of responses came in that kind of touched on if courses were more identical from one course to the next, as the virtual students can either be blended or they're taking all online, and then that swap from some professors who don't really take the time to either like really customize their course, and then there's professors who really do, like you said, put a lot of time into where things are placed and how they look and customize the whole thing that it looks so different. Students were having a hard time navigating. So it's always kind of difficult. Or we've just seen student feedback on that was frustrating, or I wish they were all the same so things were in the same place. My first reaction when I saw this daylight was like, wait, how do you tell which widget is what? Because they're not outlined, or there's no header color. But I think it's going to look a lot cleaner. And if students see that it's the same across all their courses, they may not struggle from one course to the next.
Yeah. I think anytime you have to relearn something that's part of a core function, it's going to be a challenge. The minute you go in and something that was in the top left corner before is in the bottom right, that can be rough. And we actually have seen that. Probably none of you have been here long enough to remember back in the very early days of Brightspace, where the editing screen for faculty, if you were creating a discussion, the save button was in the bottom right. If you were creating a Dropbox, it was in the bottom left. And just the tiny little difference, but out of reflex, you keep going down to that bottom, that bottom right or that bottom left, depending on what you did more, and having to make that quick adjustment. It wasn't necessarily impossible, obviously, or even necessarily a show-stopping challenge, but it was still a little bit of extra effort you had to put in to doing something that shouldn't be the focus. And that's really what we want to make sure that we're asking for in our classes, is the focus be on the teaching and the learning, and let the LMS do what it does. That said, faculty can still change the order of widgets and things on the page, so you may still encounter some who have things in different locations. I will say that this navigation bar that I use in my class, I did not create this navigation bar. That is one that came about from work that virtual learning did with their faculty a little bit back. And we are seeing more and more faculty start to adopt this. It's got kind of the key functions in it that are the most used resources across the class. And then this little drop down for all of the extra stuff that you may or may not be using. So we see more and more faculty going with this layout where these remain consistent. And that way it adds a little bit of consistency to the classes without prohibiting faculty from being able to say, well, I use this tool in my class that no one else does. What am I supposed to do with that? Where does that live in my course design? Because it is a difficult line to walk for faculty, for sure.
So I have two challenges for you then with this. Does this change at all the way that D2L works with its messaging and how it incorporates into our HACC mails? Is it still like having two separate emails inside D2L and outside D2L?
Yes. I wish that were not the case. It is still two distinct systems. That said, and this is obviously I cannot make any promises, but we did just start talking about revisiting the D2L email. We made a decision very early on when we adopted Brightspace to keep those separate email silos, because our faculty and the students at the time when we made this shift indicated that they would like to have all their class stuff in one location, that they could actually go in, I want only my emails from this class, and go into the email through that class and have that kind of automatically filtered down for them. That said, with Hawkmail on all the mobile devices and students kind of working within that flow and faculty getting emails at their HACC email address anyway, it may be a conversation that comes back up. It may not, but on a technical level, yeah, it's still two separate. If that is something that students would like to see changed, I do encourage you, especially through the VLSAC, to assemble some recommendations or some survey data. Really, the voice of the students is what really motivates all of us. So when faculty hear their students want something, they go marching for it. When the administration hears that students want something, we do whatever we can to make that happen. So we do want your feedback, and if that is something that you all feel strongly about, please do put together whatever information you can, pass it along to Emily, to virtual learning, to me, and we will by all means open up that conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. I always think to myself, and this is just me, so it may not speak for every virtual student, of course, because everyone comes in with a different technical amount of experience. I've just been around computers a lot, so it's familiar for me to have multiple emails and have a lot of things going at once. I check D2L every day, even if I don't do homework every day, and likewise my HACC mail. So I tend to not miss messages, but some students might.
Yeah.
But one thing I've always sort of disliked with the messaging inbox in D2L is that it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't react as well as other inboxes. So I don't know if that's just on the learning management system side and the way it's designed, but like whether I have to always refilter to all messages to even see what's unopened. I don't know. There's just little things that have, irked me because they're not similarly functional as a regular inbox. But I don't know, like, if other students actually have ever had any issues with missing messages between the two, one in D2L email and one outside of D2L email. That was certainly just a personal question.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I'm sure without knowing any offhand of specific examples, I guarantee you somebody has, because it's confusing enough. And honestly, that I don't mind. I'm kind of like you, multiple accounts, all good. I really wish I could check my D2L email on my phone without having to try to fiddle with that. My HACC email, my Gmail, all of my inboxes go to the same app on my phone, except for my D2L email. So I've got 4 accounts over here, and then there's one over here that I have to remember to go in and check. So I'm sure that somebody has. And the email, honestly, of all the pieces of Brightspace, I think there's a lot to love. I very much enjoy Brightspace. The email tool is weird. It's weird in how it's structured. It's weird in how it filters. It's just not quite the same feeling, like you said, as another inbox that we're used to. And honestly, as the rest of Brightspace, I just find it a little more ponderous to work with.
The separate thing I was going to challenge you on was, so I see that the calendar is under resources, and maybe that's not something most faculty use, but I'm just curious what it looks like with the new update and its responsiveness as well.
That's a great question. Let's click on that right now and we'll find out. Maybe if my internet goes through. Just make sure you can still see me, right? I'm not for okay. Just recently had an incident where my video froze and I didn't know it, and I just kind of kept talking, and then there it goes. All right, so this is now honestly, I have not looked at the student view of the calendar in current daylight or current Brightspace. So I will rely on all of you to take a look at this and let me know if it looks similar to what you're used to. I can pull up the calendar over on this one too, I guess. Let's see here. There we go. So that's calendar current. And this is calendar daylight. And then, since Gracie had asked previously, let's start shrinking and see how it goes. So, all right, so that's tablet view. Ooh, phone view does get a little bit rough. Let's see if does it get any better? Nope. So that one looks like maybe they do still have a little bit of work to do, because once you get past this point, it does start to knock days of the week off the list over here, which is obviously not ideal. So that one would be very interesting to try on an actual phone. I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you for that question. I'd be very curious to see what it looks like on an actual phone.
I did not think that was going to be the one thing I asked that was actually challenged, like
Right?
or
Yeah.
a challenge.
I
thought the messaging would be,
I'm doing this presentation, everybody's excited, and then calendar.
I didn't think that was going to be what stumped daylight on this one. Well, I guess I'm That's awesome. I'm really excited about this. I hope the students will really like it. Are there any last minute questions from anyone in attendance?
I have a
Before-
question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly when are you going to make all those changes?
Exactly when? That will be May 15th.
Okay.
Yeah, so after spring classes. So if you're taking spring classes and not summer, you won't see this until the fall. And if you are taking summer classes, you will
Yeah,
see.
I'm taking summer class. I want to go on and be familiar before class start. Yeah.
Yeah, so this won't show up until the start of your summer classes.
Okay.
Because we're not able to turn it on selectively in our live environment. It would go on for everybody, and it might cause some havoc right at a bad time of the semester with final coming up. But by all means, as soon as you can get into your shells, so if you go to the landing page after May 15th, you'll be able to see this even if your courses haven't started yet, because what you would see instead of these that are closed, it would say opens on and then the date. So you can familiarize yourself with that piece on the evening of May 15th or anytime thereafter. And then once your classes start, then you'll be able to go in and take a look at this and kind of play around just like you could in a regular online class.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. One thing that on behalf of the faculty, if you do find anything that looks weird in daylight, please do let your faculty members know. This is because we can only turn it on in our staging environment, not in our live environment. A lot of our faculty are working diligently just to make sure that they're making tweaks to anything that looks a little unusual. They want it to look good for when the classes start. There's a lot of content in our in our online classes, and that can be a very difficult challenge. So there's a pretty decent chance that some of us, probably me more than anybody, will miss something along the way. The more we can hear from students, oh, hey, this one thing isn't looking right, that will help us identify those little bits and pieces that we might have missed when we were kind of scouring our way through all of our classes, trying to make those tweaks.
So then you recommend students reach out to their faculty on that, but if they have any other questions that come to mind after our meeting, Jason, what's a great way for them to get in touch with you?
That is a terrific question. So email is the most reliable. I check my email maybe an unhealthy amount. It is Beaudin, and I can put it in the chat so that it's easy to find, because my name is spelled strangely. There we go. You can email me at that address. You can email me directly. If I am able to answer the question, I certainly will. If I am not, there are a team of experts that work with me who make me look much better than I actually would myself. So I can certainly ask them questions, and they can help find the answers for you as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that you came out and gave us such a run through, and I'm glad that we found at least one thing that stumped you.
Right? It's always good to have stuff to work on. Now I can go back to D2L and say, listen, we got to talk about the email and the calendar, and what are we going to do about those? And I'm sure that they are probably already working on them, because I'm sure
they are.
The experience to be the best it can possibly be.
Great. So I think that's all I really had for tonight, everyone. I just want to, again, thank Jason for being able to show us everything, all the updates, give us a really live view of all of that. That was awesome. But I don't have anything else planned for the meeting. So I just want to point at a few last things before we wrap up. Obviously, thank you for coming out. We're glad to see so many attendees that have been here before and some new attendees. We appreciate you making it out tonight. Hope that this was really informational for you and helpful as you look forward to the next couple semesters with HACC. We do only have 2 more meetings planned for this semester, next Monday and the following Monday. So we'll be just doing a wrap up on May 7th. But next week, we do have another guest speaker coming out. The Assistant Provost for Virtual, Doreen Fisher-Bammer, is going to be joining us to talk about virtual learning strategic planning that she's working on for HACC and for us. So it's just an awesome opportunity to talk again with some more of the really informational, but also just really well-rounded individuals that work at HACC that are working for us. So we're excited to have her next week. And the last thing I wanted to just let everyone in attendance know, we are running a contest for an Apple iPad. It is in D2L Brightspace under our D2L course shell. So you might have to search for us. We're going to be at the bottom of the alphabet with VLSAC. So you may have to search for our course, but in the Dropbox in our course are all the information and like how to, things that you need to know about virtual bingo. So you can help us learn a little bit more about virtual students by participating in that. And also for attending tonight, we're going to be sending out an email to you since we collected hopefully your HACC mails when you signed in tonight. So we're just going to be sending you out a little gift in your email. So be sure to look for that as well. If there are no other questions, I'm going to call meeting adjourned. But thanks again, everyone. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening and the rest of your week at HACC.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate the opportunity. You're wonderful. Thanks.
No, we love having you. Thanks, Jason.
Ask me back anytime. Have a good night.
See you later.
See you, everyone. Thanks for coming. #Jason's the best.